G'day everyone, my name is Julian. Welcome to the workshop. In this one, what I'm going to be doing is taking an STL file and showing you how to bring that into Fusion 360. Now there are quite a few ways that you can do this, but I'm going to show you my way, which I think is the most efficient. It also will show you some tips and tricks towards the end of how you can really effectively work with this STL and get the most out of it without making your computer die. So let's jump into Fusion. We won't mess around. Let's get into it, eh? Alright, so when you jump into the Fusion 360 interface, there are obviously two ways. You could come in and just upload your STL straight into Fusion as a file itself. I don't really like to do that. What I like to do is come over here, start a new file, come down to Insert, go Insert Mesh. What this allows me to do is bring in the STL file into my own new file or an existing file that I want to work with. The reason I do this is it gives me far more control over orientation and the unit type within Fusion 360. So here, when you're in the file, you'll see on the right, you can control whether the original STL was made in millimeters or inches. You can also change its orientation. You can center it to the origin, or what I like to do is just bring it in, move it to ground, work with it from there. You can go a little bit deeper and control it numerically if you want to get really accurate with it, but for this demo, we'll just move it to ground and click OK. Now what you'll see is this lovely little pink mess of an object. It's not quite what you used to when you're working with Fusion 360 files. Fusion 360 uses bReps. If you go down to the display settings and change your visual style to shaded with visible edges, you'll see that you've got a model made up of thousands of little triangles. To start working with a mesh, we have to first turn off our timeline. To do this, you go up here to Unsaved, you right click, go down to Do Not Capture Design History, and that'll turn off this timeline down the bottom. When you do that, two things you'll notice. One, timeline's disappeared, but you've also got a new set of parameters and tabs up the top. The one we're going to be interested in is mesh. Once we've done this, you could go straight ahead and convert it to a bRep if you've got quite a simple file. You go Modify, you go down to Mesh, and you click Mesh to bRep. You select the mesh you want, and you click OK. One of three things is going to happen. Either it's just going to do the whole conversion, that means that you've got a reasonably simple STL file, or it's going to come up with this box saying that you've got too many facets and conversion is not recommended, but it will let you do it. The third one is that it won't let you do it at all. It'll still come up with this thing. The threshold of those, from what I can tell, is anything above 10,000 facets, it's going to give you a dialog like this, and anything over 50,000, it won't do it. I know that my computer can handle 14,000, so I could just go ahead and click OK. It should have a little think and pop me out a bRep file. So what if you've got something that's way more complex than this, or that you want to kind of dumb it down a little bit so you can work with it a bit easier? Before we go through and convert it mesh to BREP, what we can do is we can actually reduce it. Now, before I used to do this in something called Mesh Mixer. Because Mesh Mixer and Fusion 360 are owned by the same company, they've kind of integrated this whole process into one. So if you go up to Mesh, you'll see under Modify, we've got Reduce. We click that. What you can do is to select the whole mesh body. Under Bodies, you can select the mesh. I generally use Adaptive. Adaptive will change the size of the triangles accordingly. This gives you a far closer and more accurate reduction. Here with the Reduce target, you can either go by density, so that's, you'll say I want 0.2 of the amount of triangles, or I want the face count, or I want to do it by tolerance. Face count is quite handy in these scenarios because you can get as many faces as possible. If I go face count and I change my face count to 9999, underneath there I can click Preserve Boundaries. So what Preserve Boundaries will do is it'll try to keep all your edges nice and sharp. And also down the bottom here you can see Preview. So when I preview this file, you'll notice that it only really reduces in that fillet. Click OK, and there we have it. Reasonably close to what we had before without losing too much detail, but we have a much more manageable file. So if I want to just reduce certain sections, like maybe this front edge, I want to maybe reduce the triangles there and keep the detail and everything else, what I can do is I can go into Reduce instead of selecting the whole mesh body, now I can come in and just select this front edge. Just like that. Reduce my face count right down. Have a look at the preview. So here we're going from 500 triangles to about half that. You'll notice that you want to kind of play the balance of having that detail but still keeping your form. Click OK. Once it's reduced to this stage, it's going to be far more manageable, far more computer friendly. Alright, no matter how powerful your computer is, if you take a complex cut through one of these geometries with thousands and thousands of triangles, you're going to have a bad day. We're going to modify, we go down to mesh, and we go mesh to bRep. Select our mesh, click OK, and that'll pump us out the perfect little bRep. Now what you can do, because it's a bRep and it's the same geometry that you're used to using in Fusion, you can go through and do all the things that you would normally do with a normal Fusion 360 file. There is one little thing that I want to show you before you continue, and I'm going to let you know that this makes it so much easier in the long run to work with your file. You'll notice obviously that your bRep is made up of thousands of little faces. If we want to now convert those faces into surfaces that you are more used to, we need to do it now before we turn our timeline back on. There's two ways that you can do this, the simplest of which is you can just click on a face, bang delete, and what it'll do is it'll just patch that face and try to merge it with the ones next to it. A little bit tedious, but if you've only got certain pieces that you want to turn into a flat surface, this is quite a handy tip. Another way that you can do it is that you could just use the merge tool in your surface tools to turn a whole area into one big surface. Now in theory you could come in here and rebuild the entire model. You could go really crazy with it, but if you think about it, why waste all that time when all I need is the bit that I'm going to cut out? So my plan with this is that I want to cut out a logo into the front of this fender. So what I'll do is I'll make sure my selection tools are set priority by face, and I'm just going to drag in that area that I want to convert. Once I'm happy with the area that I've selected, I can go up to modify and use the merge tool. Now merge tool is only going to be around if you still have your timeline switched off. So I've got mine up here pinned to the taskbar, so I can just click that. It's going to come up on the right here saying how many triangles I've selected. I bang OK, wait a little bit, give it some time to think, and what you should see is that it's created a surface that we're much more familiar with in our normal 360 workflow. Now when working with these files, there is no real secret formula to building your file back to a full-on bRep. You just have to take your time. Last but not least, before you start working with it like a normal brep, so doing your cuts and your lofts and that kind of thing, what I need to do is turn back on my timeline. So right click where we did last time, capture design history, and you'll notice that your mesh tools are gone and you can work with this as normal. I'm going to go insert a DXF, which is my logo. I'm going to select the top plane. Put it where I want it to be. Double check everything, click OK, and then proceed to cut it just like I would any other profile. I can show you a bit in depth of how I created this file and brought it into Fusion 360, but maybe we'll save that for another video. If you want to know about that, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do that for you. Sweet, there you have it. Nicely customized piece. What I can do to make it look a little bit better is go back into that visual style, turn it back to shaded, and this will give you a better idea of what the final model is going to look like. Now what we can do is send it to our slicer, bang it on the printer, job done. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this one. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute blast. These kind of videos have come because of my Patreons wanting a bit more information about some of the Fusion 360 stuff. My Patreons have been absolutely fantastic. They get all the access to my Fusion 360 files, as well as the direct line to me to kind of suggest videos and ask questions about Fusion 360. So if you do want to do that, I'll leave a link down below. It's only a couple bucks a month, helps the channel out heaps. But if not into that, maybe check out another video. If you made it this far, I'm gonna leave one over here that goes over some of the product design stuff I did before, and this one, YouTube is just gonna pick the best one for you and serve it at you. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time, mate.